Welcome to episode 209 of Empty the Bench on the Empty the Bench podcast network. He's Johnny Montalbano. I'm Nick Morgasen. Follow us on social media at ETB Sports, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at ETB Sports. Follow the Empty the Bench podcast network at ETB Network, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Make sure you like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/ETB Network. For this show, for the Monty Moments Johnny does, for a bunch of other shows that we have as well. Just broke over 620 plus subscribers. So we're really moving along the trail. Also, our website, etbpodcast.com, for blogs and other information as well. And all the latest on streams, which we'll promote at the end of the show. We have a lot of streams coming up, so we'll break that all down as well. All right. So we got a lot to go over in this show. A lot. So the big news is going to be Deshaun Watson. We'll get to that. We're going to have to do a lot of breaking down. Is that $230 million contract a complete bust? And will we see guaranteed contracts? We'll break that all down. Also, Jim Harbaugh and Michigan, obviously, in the news. Obviously gets suspended 3 games. Michigan files a temporary restraining order, which really didn't make a lot of sense to me. You might know this a little better, since you followed college a little more than I do. So he plans to attend that hearing as well. We'll break that all down. Also, Jimbo Fisher hits the jackpot for the wrong reasons. We'll break that down as well. Also, the Buffalo Bills are in trouble, and they fire their offensive coordinator in Ken Dorsey. So we'll look into that as well. We'll give you a Thursday Night Football pick. Bengals and Ravens. Great game for Thursday Night Football, by the way. Probably the best one they've had all season.
Yeah, what a stark contrast from last week to tonight, right? I mean, incredible what a 180 that is.
Yeah, also some NBA news. We'll break down some highest paid coaching contracts. James Harden struggling. Shocker. And Draymond Green is a bully. Again. Which, again, not a shocker. And we'll throw in some baseball just to put the cherry on top as well.
So I have to say, I haven't been on in a few weeks, Nick, and it seems like nothing's changed. We're talking about Deshaun Watson, James Harden, and Draymond Green. Wow, like nothing seems to have changed, right?
No, nothing has changed.
4 episodes, and it'll happen again.
So let's get into the madness. Ian Rappaport has reported that Deshaun Watson has suffered a season-ending shoulder injury and is heading to IR. Gee, Cleveland Browns, $230 million well spent? I don't think so.
No, definitely not. And Nick, this broke Wednesday morning, and when I first heard about it, I was surprised, and I wasn't surprised because he's been dealing with shoulder problems for the last couple of weeks. We've heard about it. He's missed time. He's come back early from it, but the thing that I took from this right away was they said this was a different injury, a different shoulder injury than the one he's been dealing than he had before, and that's kind of alarming. Anytime with a shoulder when it comes to either a baseball pitcher or a starting quarterback in football, that raises the alarms. And this to me is a big deal for Cleveland, because if you think about it now, granted he's missed half his time there since he's been a Brown. Whether it was the suspension last year or this year, the injuries, whether it's the ankle or the shoulder or whatnot. But if you look at the game last week against the Ravens, he started out so poorly. And then the second half of that game was probably his best half of football since he was a Houston Texan. And the fact that the Browns come back and win that game, which is just like so crazy. You could spend almost an entire episode about how crazy that game was. And now he suffers this. They come out, announce this injury, and he needs surgery immediately so the injury doesn't get worse.
Yeah, I mean the broken bone.
Yeah, the broken bone. And if you're a Browns fan, I feel for the Browns fan in this, because here's a team that went to the season with a great running back in Chubb, and he only plays a few games, and he has a season-ending injury. And then you have a team that this is not an exaggeration, is a Super Bowl caliber defense. And now
Garrett.
Garrett. And you look at that team. I mean, look what they did to 49ers. They've done to other teams this year. I mean, even that game against the Colts where they gave up 38 points, they still had 4 takeaways.
The Ravens game.
Yeah, and also the Raven game, which, again, that was a game that it looked like that Baltimore could have ran away with in the very early stages on, and then they held in check, and then they ultimately won that game in crazy fashion. But now you have now, as long as you get decent quarterback play, but if you look at the numbers between Watson and PJ Walker, who's okay, he's a capable backup, or even Dorian Thompson-Robinson, it's kind of it's a hit. It definitely is, especially in this division that you can make the case that almost all 4 of these teams can make the playoffs this year.
Yeah, I mean, and people are gonna, not that I want to stay away from these jokes, but people are just gonna say Deshaun Watson could go to the masseuse and get it all taken out. But by the way, I don't condone that joke by any means, but I've seen a million memes and GIFs of that already. Like, people need to, first of all, behave and stop with the nonsense. But it's $230 million wasted. Let's just be real here. It's a fully guaranteed contract that people don't realize that this is now going to affect, going forward, contracts for quarterbacks. Because who's going to want to give a fully guaranteed contract? First of all, have we ever seen a fully guaranteed quarterback contract before?
Not like this. I mean, you want to say Joe Burrow's contract, but that's not fully guaranteed. A lot of it is, but not all of it.
I just never heard a fully guaranteed contract over $200 million. Basically, the Browns just flushed $230 million down the toilet.
Yeah, and the Texans seem to have gotten the best out of that, because now look at the situation they're in, and they got multiple first-round picks on top of that, too.
And look at Stroud. I mean, he looks great.
Yeah, I mean, we're sitting here right now in the middle of November, and he could be not only the Rookie of the Year, he's an MVP candidate right now with how he's playing down there in Houston.
I definitely would say you have to discuss him in the MVP discussion. I don't know if he really should be an MVP candidate. He's been great.
Fair.
For a rookie, but you definitely have to throw him in the discussion to be talked about. This guy has come out, and what was the game? He had 490 yards and 5 touchdowns. Which game was that?
Yeah, 470. That was against the Bucks.
That was an incredible game, by the way. This guy is going to be great.
Yeah, and for a rookie quarterback, Nick, he's not making many mistakes. He's not throwing interceptions. He's not making many mistakes. Even the game against the Bengals last week, he made one bad throw, and that was probably the worst throw of his rookie career. But you don't usually see this out of rookie quarterbacks. And I'll tell you, who's probably regretting that right now is the Carolina Panthers, is they had the chance to get him. And I remember that we were on during draft night, and that IQ test or whatever test it was that was supposedly scaring teams away. But
and you know what? If I remember correctly, I went off on that.
You sure did. Absolutely, I remember that quite well.
Because a stupid test does not determine how well you play on the football field. That is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. I mean, maybe if you want to talk about off-the-field decision-making and all that stuff, if you want to say that's what that test, I don't know if that was, what is that, the Wonderlic or whatever they call it?
Yeah, it's some crazy thing.
I mean, people got to stop. Physical ability and intelligence, would it be great to have both? Yes, but one doesn't they don't coincide in the same discussion.
And CJ Stroud's a smart kid. I mean, I've seen him in interviews. I mean, he knows what he's talking about. He knows what he's doing. So, I mean, he's a smart kid. I'll tell you right now. He's in a very good system down there. I think that's the thing with Bryce Young. I don't think Bryce Young's in the best system there in Carolina. I think he still will be all right. But, I mean, that they have to work out some kinks there in Carolina for sure.
And Frank Reich's got to go. He's not going to survive there. I mean,
well, it's funny you say that because they're scaling back. He's going to take back over the. Remember, they changed offensive coordinators, or they changed the offensive system. Now, supposedly, he's going back to it. But remember Trevor Lawrence in his rookie year, and I'm kind of comparing CJ. And I don't want to go off on this, but I'm comparing Bryce Young to Trevor Lawrence in his rookie year, where Lawrence he really didn't take off until they got rid of Urban Meyer. And once they got rid of him, he seemed to take off. Maybe Bryce Young needs needs a better coach, but he also needs an offensive line. And he needs receivers. That team is not. I looked like they had one of the better off seasons, at least on paper, but it's not really working out to his advantage.
And I wouldn't say Adam Thielen was what they expected to be to help like a veteran presence to help a rookie quarterback. That didn't work out.
Yeah. But just going back here to Watson, this is, the talk, there's going to be two conversations with this. Number one, like you said, the fully guaranteed contracts going forward, which I think has to be a big deal. And number two, can the Browns still make the playoffs without Watson? And right now, I think that takes a hit. Now, their defense is going to keep them in these games, but a true test I think is going to be coming up this Sunday when they take on the Steelers.
I mean, I hate to make this comparison because I don't like. They're the Jets now.
Well, it's funny you say that because that is actually what I would compare them to right now. Both teams great defensively, but offensively, quarterback's a major question. And that brings up another factor into all this, too. Kevin Stefanski comes out on Wednesday, and they announced that they are going to Dorian Thompson-Robinson, the fifth rounder, to start, and not P.J. Walker. I thought that was...
What?
I saw that. I could not believe. When I heard and read that, they were going to DTR over P.J. Walker.
Yeah, Stefanski has been very questionable in coaching decisions, and I just feel like he's made some boneheaded decisions with this team. Like their defense, the reason I said it reminds me of the Jets. Cleveland has a really, really good defense. Like I don't know if this is a hot take, but I would say better than the Jets. Actually,
yeah, I agree with you. I think that they're the best defense in the National Football League. That's how
I think. I think Garrett is Defensive Player of the Year. I think
he's one of my guys up there. I mean, I would put him up there. I would put Crosby from the Raiders. I would put T.J. Watt from Pittsburgh in that discussion. But Myles Garrett's definitely got to be discussed. And the Browns will definitely have a chance to win games here, no matter who they're playing, because of that defense. But now without Watson, I mean, I know they're talking about possibly going after another guy as well, but we'll see what DTR does. I mean, obviously the first time he was out there, he did not look great at all. But now you go up against the Steelers team on Sunday. That will be an interesting test because when we talk about the Steelers, we talk about them with their defense as well. So that will be something to watch here on Sunday.
How many seasons has Stefanski been the head coach of the Browns?
Well, remember, I believe he was there when Baker Mayfield was there. So we're talking, I would say at least 4 or 5. I mean, that's the one thing. I think he's been a stable guy there in Cleveland. And I think that's one thing that's turned them around a little bit here is the fact that they've actually not changed coaches like the Raiders have every 2 years, it seems.
Oh, my God. And they owe, what, like 80 plus million now to different coaches?
It's a lot, yeah. Oh, the Raiders, yes. The Raider number is absolutely insane.
Oh my God! I mean, I don't know. Like I feel like I said, I feel bad for Cleveland because again, they don't have a quarterback really now. They got to make do with what they got, and unfortunately, it's. I mean, I wouldn't put bags over the fans' heads yet. I wouldn't go that far, but. You know my opinion on Watson. I have not been a fan of Watson at all whatsoever. Now, am I a little bit biased because I don't like the fact of what he did off the field? Absolutely. I am going to be a little biased for what he shouldn't be on this field still to this day. That's my opinion of where I stand on it.
Right.
But since we're talking about the X's and O's and what's going on in the field, in my opinion, they could finish last in this division without a quarterback.
So just a couple of things real quick. So Stefanski's been their head coach since 2020. So we're talking about 1, 2, 3, 4 seasons. This is his 4th year there. He signed a 5-year deal in January of 2020.
I feel like if they don't make a run, well, they're not going to make a run this year because Watson's now out. But I think last year the contract, he could get fired. I think he could get fired because he has not proven anything. What do they say? Usually it's 3 seasons you get usually to figure it out.
Yes.
He's in his 4th.
So let's look at he's in his 4th year with, again, a very capable defense. Chubb was a great running back, but now he's hurt. They've got some guys there in the receiving core like Cooper and Moore. But let me give you their schedule the rest of the way here, and let's see what they could do here. They've got the Steelers, obviously, they're home to play on the Steelers on Sunday. They got to go to Denver to take on the Broncos, which right now,
it's a little scary.
right? I mean, the way that Denver's playing, and they got a very interesting game this Sunday.
We'll get to that game later because that was just insane.
Right. Then they go to LA to take on the Rams. They're home to take on the Jaguars. They're home against the Bears. They're at Houston. They're home to face the Jets, and then they're at Cincinnati in Week 18 to close out the year.
It's a little bit of a tough schedule.
Yeah, so let's see. They've got, 4, 5, 6. They got 8 games left. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm being generous. 500.
I'm looking at it now just so I can get a look. Pittsburgh, I think that one's going to go down to the wire. I just think that's the way that divisional game. I think it's going to be close. Denver is not the layover anymore. Like, Russell Wilson actually looked good the other day against the Bills. Well, there's a whole nother reason why they won that game. But
it's not even Wilson; it's their defense that's turned this around for Denver.
But I have to say also, Russ is finally playing against the zone coverage and running for first downs, which he wasn't doing.
Yeah.
At Los Angeles, that game is definitely winnable. Depending on which Matthew Stafford you get, if he's healthy.
Yeah.
Jacksonville's a mess right now, losing 34-3 to San Francisco. I mean, San Francisco was finally healthy for the first time in many weeks, but Jacksonville, that was a poor showing at home.
Yeah.
Chicago, they could definitely win that. Definitely win that.
Seems favorable.
At Houston, again, they were a layover beginning of the season. I don't think they're a layover anymore. They can win games, especially with Stroud, the way he's playing. Then they have the Jets. Was that at home?
They are home to play on the Jets. They're home to play the Jets. That'll be the final Thursday night game of the season on Amazon on the 28th.
I think that's going to be a low-scoring game. It's a battle of two tough defenses.
That over under when we do Football Friday that week might be 30.
I think it's going to be less.
Right? I mean, we might be challenging the Rutgers Iowa game from last week in college football.
Yeah, and then the final game is at Cincinnati, but who knows what Cincinnati might be on the road to wherever at that point, whether they're in or out. I don't think that game's going to matter. So they definitely could make a run, but to not have Watson, I think it's going to hurt. And why are you not starting P.J. Walker when P.J. Walker has actually looked halfway good?
Yeah, I don't know what the theory is behind that, but also when you don't have Nick Chubb there too, that's another massive blow.
Second massive injury for Chubb too.
Right, it's the same second torn ACL or MCL or something like that, right? It's.
I mean, I hate to say this, but his career could be over.
Yeah, it's hard to come back from two things like that.
That's like getting 2 Tommy Johns in baseball as a pitcher.
Yeah.
Now the TJ surgery has gotten more technologically advanced, where people are returning from 2 TJs, but let's just say your odds are not good after 1, but after 2, totally different story. All right, let's move around a little bit. Let's go to your neck of the woods. Let's talk Harbaugh. So the Big Ten bans Michigan head coach Jim Harbaugh for 3 games. I was following this. There was the sign stealing. What was the guy's name? Connor Stallions was the guy who apparently was being paid to be on the with tickets and nonsense to be on the sidelines or in the stands. It was like a good old fashioned Patriots situation with sign stealing. I don't know. What do you make of? Let's start with this first part, and then we'll talk about the other part. So, what do you think about this first?
Well, it's tricky, Nick, because this is what ultimately ends up happening is that the head coach is the one who takes the fall, whether he knows about it or not. That's in college football. That's what it is. I know Heather Dinich and Adam Rittenberg and Pete Thamel on ESPN have done
all over it. Yeah,
been all over this. They've done an unbelievable job of explaining it throughout. On Friday, we're waiting for this news to break. I mean, it was the Friday news dump, and originally this was supposed to come out earlier in the day on Friday. It doesn't come out till after Michigan lands in Ann Arbor.
Harbaugh was on the airplane, on the private jet.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think they in the back part of the mind knew that he was going to get suspended, but
yeah, but that was a little bit of.
It was not getting announced until they landed in Pennsylvania for the big game against Penn State last week.
I can't remember the guy's name, the guy who is the head of the Big Ten, like who was getting criticized for all the stuff that he was doing.
Yes,
but
the Big Ten commissioner you're talking about, right?
Yeah, I think that who basically dropped the people are getting on his case
You're
big
talking
time.
about Tony Petitti.
Yeah, Petitti. Oh, by the way, you ready for a hint of irony about Tony Petitti?
Mm-hmm.
I found this out doing research the other day. Tony Petitti worked under Rob Manfred.
Yes, that is true.
So people are like, "Oh, there's another guy who has no idea what he's doing." Now, here's the problem. We've said this many times about college coaches who say, "I don't know what's going on in my organization." Does what was it? Penn State ring a bell?
Joe Paterno, yep.
Who said, "I don't know. I didn't see it. I wasn't there." But you're responsible for running an organization. You have to know what's going on with your coaches and your players and your brand. You got to know.
Well, so as far as the suspension, though, here's just what I don't get. Now, I feel in some ways they didn't go after the university hard enough because first off, it should not be on the players. You
can't ban the players here at all.
But what you could do though is either come down harder on the head coach because what you only did was suspend him for 3 games for the second time this year, by the way. But he's allowed to be at the practices throughout the week.
See, that made no sense to me whatsoever. If you're going to suspend somebody, they're suspended. There's no in between. Either they're not allowed to be there, they're suspended, no walkthroughs, even though with technology today, anyone can do anything off the field. Yeah. But there shouldn't be allowed to be part of the playbook or the strategy at all. Gone. Suspended. And by the way, second time, like you just said, being suspended 3 games.
Yeah.
Now, the first one I think was a little bit overzealous, if I really had to have an opinion on it. I think it had to do with him paying for a meal for a college recruit
thing. No, that's always been.
But come on, I always found that to be
stupid. Where you're coming up from that, absolutely. But I think the other thing with the suspension too is it needed to be harsher on the university. If you go after, and we're not even talking about money, but you talk about like recruiting, you talk about that kind of stuff. If you go down hard on that, that's more of an impact than saying suspending Harbaugh for 3 games when he can still be at the practices throughout the week.
But people were saying like, "Oh, well, you got to suspend them for the playoffs." Don't put this on the players. The players did not do this. Like, if you're gonna, Harbaugh is really the only one who could take the blame, really, for this at that point.
And Dinich has been so specific and spot on about that on ESPN about that exact thing.
And you hear everybody, like College Game Day. I can't remember the guy's name who went to Michigan.
Desmond Howard,
who was basically destroying Petitti and the Big Ten. First of all, who cares what his opinion is? Who cares?
Howard?
Yeah.
Well, he went to Michigan, so that's you have to when that stuff happens. So you have to take that with a grain of salt because he went to Michigan.
But that's what I'm saying.
To say that sign steal, and everybody said this, that sign stealing happens everywhere. Not like this.
People got to stop with that excuse, by the way. Oh, sign stealing happens in every... Of course it does. What do they call that? The semantics of sports. Yeah. Like, it's all fun and games until somebody gets hurt. Like, people got to stop. Sign stealing happens. Okay, it's technically not against the rules to steal signs.
Right. And that's part of what these coaches have said. Brian Kelly and LSU has said that. Others have said that too. But, here's the thing too. If you're that good, why do you need to sign steal? You get an advantage on anybody? Think about it. Michigan talks about how great they are. Then here's the best thing. Harbaugh comes out and talks about how they're America's team. I'm like, dude,
that was the dumbest thing I ever heard. By the way,
here's the funny thing about that, and you know what? Maybe you are America's team because just like the Dallas Cowboys, you don't win big.
Yes.
So you know what? You're right, Jim. You are America's team because you
don't win anything.
Dallas Cowboys can be fun in the regular season, and in the most important games, you fail.
You don't win anything.
Right? The game against TCU last year, you thought that was going to be a walkthrough in the college football playoff semifinal, and TCU kicked you in the ass last year. Let's be honest. They destroyed them in the semifinal game last year. It wasn't even close. And this has always been Harbaugh's biggest thing. Now, another factor into all this too is people have been talking about, well, this could be a situation where Harbaugh gets suspended for 3 games, and then he uses this to leave Michigan and go to the NFL, which has been rumored for forever and a day now.
Years.
Yeah, right. I mean, how many times have I told you, whether it was here or on Game On or whatnot in the offseason, how we were talking about Harbaugh getting either interviewed for certain head coaching positions, that it was rumored that he was coming back.
He interviewed for Minnesota last offseason.
Yeah.
I mean, we got to stop.
Teams, yeah. It's
we got to
been
stop.
A long time, though, since Harbaugh's coaching the NFL. I mean,
and the weird part is, like, I was listening to a bunch of national radio shows over the last couple of days because I'm curious to hear what everybody's opinion. People are saying he should go, and I think Buffalo. That's the team I've been hearing.
Buffalo now.
No, but people are saying he should go to Buffalo and take McDermott's spot. Guys, he's been in college for the last how many years? I mean, I understand, like, he was the Niners coach and they won a lot of games and whatnot, but different mindset, different game. Yeah, people don't realize that when he was a coach, the rules were different. I don't think he's going to be a good head coach anymore in the NFL, to be honest.
It's changed. The NFL has changed a lot since the last time he's been in the league. Yes.
I mean, who was his quarterback? Was it still Kaepernick or was it Garoppolo?
No, they had Alex Smith there.
Or was it Alex Smith?
Right, they had Alex Smith, and then they went to Kaepernick, and Garoppolo came after that.
Okay, so talk about different styles of quarterback, too. I mean,
right.
But people got to give it a rest. And then I want to move to the second part of this. So Michigan head coach Jim Harbaugh plans to attend the hearing. Did you see the press conference, the silly press conference that he gave?
Yes.
With some of the weird stories he was telling. Like, I put one of the clips up on our YouTube channel because it was so ridiculously funny. He started talking about how his family raises chickens.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what is going on here?
And then talks about, like, going back to the America's team because of all the adversity and stuff. I'm like, wait a second. I mean, what adversity has Michigan had to go through?
None.
In the last several years.
None. And also, I think he started telling the story how he was sitting in the courtroom for Judge Judy with his father. Also, like, was this supposed to be like a distraction to the media? Is that what he was trying to do?
He was going off into so many different tangents. It was hard to keep up.
Don't get me wrong. The chicken story was hilarious, but I was very confused. Like, because he basically said at the beginning of the news conference, guys, I can't answer anything. I'm going to the hearing to whatever. But then what's the point of having the press conference? Why are you there? What are you doing there?
Well, it's part of the fact that he's there during the week because he can be with the team during the week, just not on game day.
I don't know if you also heard what happened with Fox. I think it was with Jenny Taft, who she tried to get an interview for Big Ten. What's the show they have?
Big Noon Kickoff, yes.
And like the network essentially rejected the interview, and they tried to get a camera inside his hotel room, and like they rejected the whole thing. Like, guys, we're putting way too much attention on a guy being suspended 3 games.
Yes. But just remember, that's only because he was on the plane because they didn't make this announcement until after they landed.
It's ridiculous. I mean, to be honest, I don't think they're going to overturn it. I thought the injunction was... Oh, that's what I wanted to ask you. The injunction. So, an injunction is usually used for legal proceedings, not to get a head coach unsuspended.
Yeah, this is not a legal thing. That's what's kind of hilarious out of all this. This is not anything legal.
Does this show you how desperate Michigan is?
Yeah, because they're trying to get over the hump. You know, they've been down this road for years now, where they've been they've actually turned this around the last couple of years. Because if you think about it, the Big Ten, it's always been Ohio State and everybody else. But in the last couple of years, Michigan has broken that camel. That's been the one thing that Harbaugh, when he was at Michigan, struggled with in the beginning, is they could never beat Ohio State. In fact, I think his first 5 years there, he lost the first 5 games, but he's won the last 2. And he knows that if he could beat Ohio State again a week from Saturday and win, and then ultimately win the Big Ten championship, that Michigan will be in one of the 4 teams playing on New Year's Day in the CFP semifinals.
But I think the comparison you made earlier was spot on. I think that Michigan is the Dallas Cowboys. Like, they talk a big game, they play a big game, but they can't finish.
Right. I mean, look what the Cowboys do this year. Every time you hear them, you always hear these guys talk, whether it's Parsons or whatnot, but then they don't go out there and make moves to try and improve their roster. Except when you look at like the Philadelphia Eagles, they go out there and improve their roster. I mean,
and by the way, the Cowboys and the Cowboy fans need to shut up. You beat a Giants team last week. No offense.
Nick, you're 100% right. And that's what I find hilarious. And the coverage of this is that, Dak is back. This is the best he's ever been. I'm like, guys, I'm going to be honest with you. Let me make a college football comparison. That was an NFL team beating an FCS school.
Yes, and that's what they were saying.
But that's what we are right now. I'm a Giants fan, by the way, folks, if you don't realize that. But that's basically what we are right now. We've got a third-string quarterback starting, an undrafted rookie starting with, the best receiver that they've got, who's the tight end, is on IR. Their best offensive lineman keeps getting hurt. Their best defensive player was dealing with concussion Sunday. It was amazing. It was amazing they only lost by 32 Sunday. But
guys, just to make another comparison, they beat the over by themselves.
By themselves, of course. Yeah, and that wasn't a surprise. But yeah, I actually do compare Michigan to the Dallas Cowboys. So if Michigan wants to go out there and say they're America's team, they're 100% right, because you know what? They get a lot of the attention and they don't win.
And by the way, people were giving shit to Paul Feinbaum, which I don't understand why. Because he was making. Do you know exactly why they were giving him?
Paul Feinbaum has been so good on this. Maybe because he's actually right and accurate on a lot of
people. Don't like that he's right. That's the problem.
Paul is fine. I watch his show, especially on Fridays when he's at the location of the SEC Nation. They're on the SEC Network. I always watch when he's on with Dinich on Get Up. I mean, there's some of the smartest minds in the business, folks.
I think people give him a hard time because they don't like his attitude sometimes. I think that's part of the reason.
Fine. I mean,
no. I'm saying he's a very smart guy, but I think part of the reason they don't like the way he's very negative perception wise when you look at him.
I mean,
I'm not. I agree with you. He's one of the smartest college football analysts there is, up there with Dinich and others, but. I don't know. It's people need to relax and realize that Michigan will come back from this, whether it's Harbaugh or not. I mean, there was only 3 games left in the season anyway.
Yeah, it's 2. So they've got Maryland on Saturday, and then obviously the huge game next week against Ohio State, which, by the way, the ratings for that game a week from Saturday are going to be astronomical. They're going to top 20 million for that game.
That's nuts.
Yeah, and that's college football. And again, college is so great. And I do multiple Monty moments about it, which you can check out here on the ETB network about it, because it's so exciting. Just the format in general. Every game is important, and the way you play in those games also it speaks volumes. But this is all about next week against Ohio State.
They better win, basically.
Yeah, listen, they cannot make this. To me, they cannot make the CFP if they don't beat Ohio State next week. There's only going to be one Big Ten school. See, and like last year, both Michigan and Ohio State got into the CFP semifinals. This year, that will not be the case, because it is more wide open, because you're talking about an ACC school possibly getting into CFP. A Big 12 school has the potential to get in. There's only going to be a Pac-12 school, which hasn't been in the CFP playoffs since, I believe, 2016. That hasn't been like that in the years past. It's always been the SEC and the Big Ten, but now it's more wide. It's been more wide open this year in the final year of the 14 playoff.
I mean, they're going to be laughed off the stage if they lose to Ohio State after all this nonsense of America's team.
I don't like Ohio State. I'll be honest with you. As a Notre Dame fan, I was pissed off the way that Ohio State beat us earlier in the year. But I'll tell you right now, I'm going to be rooting for them to blow the doors out of Michigan when they play in a couple of weeks.
Well, speaking of blowing the doors off of somebody. Hello, Jimbo Fisher, and a $77 million buyout.
Oh, gosh.
Where's the sound when you need it?
Oh my God, play that about 100 times. He's taking the money, all right.
I mean, this, if I'm not mistaken, this is the largest buyout in the history of sports.
That is correct.
So, Jimbo Fisher, I don't know, do they call it getting fired? I don't know. Is that the legal term that they used or no?
Well, that's what it was. Now, they were supposedly what it was A&M was looking into him after their most recent game, and supposedly they were having a discussion about his future with the program. And they knew that he had such a record deal and a record amount still owed to him when they made this decision.
So Peter Burns, who also is SEC, ESPN.
Yep, SEC Network, yep.
Jimbo Fisher makes $26,000 a day until 2031. Jimbo Fisher makes roughly $1,083 an hour. And assuming a good night's sleep, Jimbo Fisher made $8,666 last night.
Oh, my gosh. I mean, and by the way, then you wonder why we're having all this talk about NIL deals with collegiate athletes.
But think about this for a second. $77 million to not coach.
And you know that there will be teams that will offer him a chance to coach again.
If I was who was it? Was it Texas A&M? If I were Texas A&M, I'd put a clause in there you can't coach.
I don't think you could do that though.
They're paying him $77 million to go away.
Yeah, they're paying him to go away, but
I mean, not that he needs the money. He can almost go coach for free, to be honest.
Yeah. Of course, there's been rumblings about now Deion Sanders, that A&M's first call should be to Deion Sanders.
Oh, God. I heard this on the radio, and I was just like, are you freaking kidding me?
Yeah.
Deion Sanders can't coach the inside of a paper bag.
Well, what he's doing, though, for college football, though, in general, though, and what he's done for that Colorado program, I know they're fading, but, I mean, it's a great thing. Nick, part of it, though, is he just doesn't have the talent there in Colorado. I mean, remember, Colorado came off of winning one game all of last season. And now, they're on track to be in a bowl game, but they just don't have the personnel right now. I mean, his son, who's the quarterback there, is a nice player. They've got a good tight end, or receiver. They've got a two-way player that's very good, but they just don't have the personnel there to compete right now.
He's got to stop putting his son on a pedestal. He's putting so much pressure on his son to be like the next coming of Jesus, that. And I don't get it. Like you said, he's a good player. But gets sacked constantly. You can't move out of the pocket.
Yeah. Shedeur Sanders is a nice QB. I mean,
I don't think he'll be an NFL QB though.
I don't think he is right now. But again, what is Shedeur is what? Isn't this his second year?
I think it's his second year coming up.
Yeah, I mean, he's got time to work this all out. I mean,
Deion's got to shut up because he's talking for his own sons. Oh, you're not going to the NFL. You're not going. You're staying here. Why can't he make his own decision?
Well, I mean, look, I think Deion is a very emphatic, very he's an emphatic guy. He's trying to energize a fan base. I mean, look, though, what he's done for the sport, though, I mean, when you see all these big name people going out to a game in Colorado for the Buffaloes is remarkable. Right. And
I heard a ridiculous number the other day that he could bring $300 million of value.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I was like, what? And I'm like, first of all, I need to see that on paper. I want to see the proof of that. But if they're talking about personality and brand, then yeah, of course. But winning, no, I just don't see that.
Yeah, well, it's not. It wasn't going to happen in year one. But again, they've got 4 wins here in 23 so far, and they're coming off of winning one game all of last season. So technically, his first year there, it's very hard to take a program from a 1-win school to a bowl game in 1 year.
The problem is he's got a big mouth. He was promising all this stuff. And
I mean, that's true. I mean, we've seen that with coaches in any sport.
I could think of one in New York football. Yeah. Rex Ryan.
Yes, I'm glad you brought that up.
But just to put a bow on Jimbo Fisher, another stat I see here. According to Front Office Sports, Texas A&M payments to Jimbo Fisher after firing him. Within 60 days, he's going to get $19.4 million. Within 120 days, another $7.27 million. And then from 2025 to 2031, $7.27 million.
It's
a lottery victory. It's a lottery.
And think about how desperate you are to do that.
First of all, these coaches make an obscene amount of money.
By the way, do you know what the next highest, the previous record for buyout?
I think it was 19 million, I think.
21.7 by Gus Malzahn in Auburn in 2020. And then he took the job at UCF.
Oh, my God. I mean, here's the problem. When you have 77 million in a buyout, maybe you overpaid Jimbo.
Yes.
And now you're paying for it. No pun intended. These coaches should not be making this much money. He's making more than some NFL head coaches are making.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and you see, though, like you see this, though, in college, whether it's Dabo, Sweeney there at Clemson, Nick Saban at Alabama. The most recent one we saw was Kirby Smart at Georgia.
Yeah, but the one difference I would say is Nick Saban has actually won titles.
Correct.
And proven his worth.
Yes. And same thing you can even say right now with Kirby Smart as he looks to try and get Georgia to three-peat for the first time since the mid-30s.
And I would say even Dabo, who I think won the one title, even he proved his value. And as long as you win one, you prove your value.
You
I
be
feel
careful though with Dabo because that Clemson program is going in the wrong direction.
Right now they are. But I'm saying with Dabo winning the one title, he proved that his value is there. He is a good coach. Like
Dabo's, now I think he's a very good coach. I think the talent's been getting worse though at Clemson. And the one thing that Clemson and Nick Saban have been running into a problem with is that those two schools have not adjusted to the new college football landscape, which is the transfer portal.
And what was it, a couple of weeks ago, he got mad during the after-game press conference or something?
Yeah, Kyler and Spartanburg. And you know what? That call has sparked Clemson, because all they did was go out and beat Notre Dame.
That went viral, that call, if I'm not mistaken.
Absolutely. Yep. No, it was a big deal. And it's, because Clemson was on their way to being under 500 in November, which we haven't seen in such a long time. By
the way, hot take or not, I love the coaches' shows that they do on the college radio stations.
I think it's great. It's a great thing. Yeah. Because, these guys take a lot of heat, but, Dabo hung in there. I mean, he'd take calls. I think that's such a great thing. I wish all schools would do that, but
I love the coaches' shows, period, like professional or college level. By the way, Robert Saleh on the Michael Kay show, for people who don't know that, in New York, taking the heat after losing games. At least he's willing to face the music, unlike most coaches.
Yes.
I mean, don't ask Bill Belichick. He won't tell you anything. But, yeah.
And about Saleh, I mean, he's loyal. We've seen that.
But, all right, let's move around. You know what? Let's get to another burning situation, Buffalo. So, where do we start with Buffalo? So, Buffalo had a bad game. I think that's being nice, by the way.
More than just a game. You can put that in plural.
They lost to Denver, what was it, 24-22?
24-22, yes.
And let's see, where to begin? Well, I'll start at the end first because that was the funniest part of the game. They line up, Denver lines up for a field goal, misses it, which is so Denver, the way they are.
Yeah.
And the Buffalo, who's been, what would you say, on a downward spiral? I think that's even being nice.
Maybe I'm being nice to saying this. They've been struggling.
I think that's even being nice.
Yeah, I'm putting it mildly, yeah.
So, 12 men on the field, penalty after the missed kick. Do you know who the 12th man was?
Who was the 12th man?
DeMar.
That's right. It was DeMar Hamlin because he played. Remember, he also played one series in there too. And it was funny how it was set up because Denver was going down the field, had no timeouts, and they were rushing to get their field goal unit out there.
The fire drill that they tried to pull.
Fire drill kick.
Which, by the way, Sean Payton, you're an idiot. Like, and I mean that sincerely because he tried to throw that game away, and Buffalo bailed them out. And Josh Allen, what is going on with Josh Allen?
Is he healthy?
I think he's healthy. He's doing what was working for him over the last couple of years. It's not working. He's trying to fit those passes into tight lanes, and now they're being picked.
Yeah, he's looking like he's his rookie self. Remember, he was awful his first year or two there in Buffalo. Turned it around. but this also started with Buffalo because they've had numerous injuries to the defense this year. Now, offensively they've been challenged as well here these last couple of weeks. It's definitely not a good thing. I mean, that's a game that you had to have there if you're Buffalo.
You can't lose to Denver. You just and not that Denver's been playing good football. I will admit that now, but
playing a lot better these last couple of weeks, especially on the defensive side. That's really where it's been for Denver these last 3 games.
Right,
winning streak.
But we got to give credit to Russell Wilson, like finally reading the zone option, finally, and taking off and running for the first downs. He was not doing that. That was costing them games.
Right.
I'm trying to look for their schedule.
Yeah, Wilson's down like 15 pounds this year, and I think that's helped a little bit. Now, remember, he got off to a little bit of a rough start. Also, remember, I don't know if he ever really got over that thumb issue that he had at the end of his Seattle tenure.
No, you know what it is? I finally think Russell Wilson got over the whole ego nonsense of off-the-field stuff.
Well, possibly too.
But I'm looking at the schedule. So, I clicked on the wrong. I clicked on Denver. 1 second. Let me click on the Bills. I don't know, but Denver just looked like otherworldly, and it made no sense. All right, here we go. So, they lost 2 in a row. They lost to the Bengals. They lost to Denver. Now, I'll give you the rest of the schedule.
Yeah.
They have the Jets at home. I'll tell you right now, you're going to be shocked. I'm going to give you a sneak preview of what I'm going to do on Football Friday. I'm leaning +7.
That I got to tell you, I was looking at that when we were prepping for the Football Friday show tomorrow, and I cannot believe that the Jets are getting 7 points as of when we're doing this right now, that they're getting 7 points. But you know what that speaks to? That speaks to the problems the Jets are dealing with, though.
Well, they have no trust in Zach Wilson, which is what I've been saying.
Saleh does, though.
No. And again, I'm not debating that. I'm just saying that the world has no trust in Zach Wilson. But again, I don't know if you saw the stat. They have not covered in prime time in how many games now? I think it was like 6 or 7 games.
You're talking about
the Bills. Yeah, the Bills.
Well, how about just in general this season? I think the last time they covered was against Washington.
It's like 5 or 6 games ago at least.
Like 4 or 5. Yeah, it's been a long time now.
And that's coming from the miserable Jet fan telling you that I think they're going to cover +7 if that's the spread. Yeah, I think by accident they will cover +7 the way Buffalo is playing.
You would think, but I mean,
and also
problems too. It's a tricky number. I mean, it's almost like they're begging you to go that way. So sometimes you got to be careful when they're begging you to do that.
Also, I don't know if you saw the social media post by Trayvon Diggs, Stephon Diggs' brother.
Yeah.
And also, I think Stephon Diggs had a Instagram story basically saying that Josh Allen is like quit on the team, essentially.
Well, I'll tell you right now, Stephon Diggs wants out of there. I mean, we've been down this road with Stephon for quite a bit now.
I think Stephon needs to shut his mouth, to be honest.
I mean, let's be fair. Like, we're talking about, like, the graphic shows about Dorsey. Dorsey took the fall in all this. Was it really?
We'll get to Dorsey in a second, but go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, he was the one that took the fall for this? But
he's the scapegoat by far. To be honest, this should be McDermott, not Dorsey.
I think you have to look at McDermott in here. Now, I've always been of the mindset, though, that Buffalo is not as close as they've been in years past, but I didn't think it was going to get this bad.
I mean, they're broken. That's the word I would use right now. They are broken offensively. Now, if you want to give them one excuse, if there is any, the injuries are bad. They have piled up the wazoo.
Absolutely, especially on the defensive end for sure.
But to be honest, the defense is not killing them. Josh Allen is killing them with the interceptions.
Yes, that's all fair.
I think he's got 70-plus interceptions in the last 5 seasons.
He's got the most.
I think it was like 71 or 72. It was an insane number.
Think about that.
Like I watched that whole game through. He was trying to fit the football into late pockets, like into late zones. Now, there was quite a few passes that went off the hands of receivers. I think Gabe Davis completely just missed one off his hands that went and got deflected into the secondary, and that was an obvious pick. Now, Josh Allen puts a lot of heat. He's got a heater of a throw. I don't think he realizes it either. And there was quite a few times where they were in plus territory, and he threw interceptions twice.
Yes.
And you can't do that. You're putting pressure on the defense, which is already not there.
Yes. And if it's out there for a long period of times, I don't care what defense you are, he gets exposed.
And Stephon Diggs really needs to, like, shut his yap. Like, big time. Getting a little tired of it. Like, you're not playing well either. Now, the one defense that I guess I could make for Stephon is he's not being targeted as much as he was.
Right.
So if you want to give him one excuse, that one I can give him. Because they're not going to him at all. And also, James Cook, I think, almost single-handedly cost them the game also.
There's multiple instances. I mean, obviously, the cherry on top is that terrible penalty at the end. But
the fumbles, like, by the way, what didn't make any sense, James Cook, I think, fumbled on the first offensive possession. And they basically said, doghouse, not putting you back in. Do you realize who they had for most of the game? It was Latavius Murray.
Latavius Murray, yep.
33-year-old Latavius Murray. You took your best running back out of the game because he fumbled once.
That should really be on the coach, on McDermott.
Now, Dorsey obviously took the hit. There was quite a few plays when I went back to look at the tape. I think they were like 4th and 1 or 3rd and 1, and they went shotgun on like 4th and 1.
I never understand why teams go on shotgun on 3rd and short or 4th and short instances.
No reason. Just run the ball. Like, or QB sneak. Like, you're going to get it. Like, what, 95% of the time? I mean, like,
way more often than not.
Josh Allen is a big enough quarterback where he could get it himself. That's his game.
Yeah, I mean, again, unless there's something not right with him, that's what we have to go back and look at. I mean, remember, he's had shoulder issues now. He's had elbow issues the last couple of years.
I mean, he made the Denver defense look like Cleveland the other night. And and they're not.
Well, part of it, though, is, to be fair on Denver's side, though, a couple things also from Monday night. You had one of the most unbelievable plays of the season, the Wilson to Courtland Sutton throw there in the left corner of the end zone, which is...
I don't know how he caught that.
Yeah, I think it was like a 6% chance, if not less of a chance of that actually happening. But if you look at when you go back at the end of this year and you look at like the top 10 plays, maybe on offense or even top 10 plays of the year in general, that play is going to be shown.
Oh, I mean, you also had the one-handed catch by CeeDee Lamb also in the Giant game. That'll be up there. Like,
it'll be up there, yep.
The Sutton catch was unbelievable. Like, I said there was no way he got 2 feet in. Somehow he did.
He did, yeah.
Or toe drags, whatever he did. But
no, I mean, he got him in. But what sparked this Denver turnaround also has been their defense here these last 3 games as well. And they now have a very interesting game coming up on Sunday night too. But as far as Buffalo goes, look, I mean, you would think you might have a favorable spot here against the Jets, against the Jets team that's reeling, going up to Buffalo, looking for revenge after the opening night loss when they lost Aaron Rodgers 4 plays in. But if they can't beat the Jets on Sunday, or not even that, but if they look awful, dare I say lethargic against the Jets on Sunday, I don't know how you recover from that.
I mean, like I said, you have the Jets, then you got the Eagles, and then you got the Chiefs.
Yeah, their schedule's brutal. That's the other thing, too, about Buffalo. I was going to bring that up, too. Their schedule here is very tough.
Listen to this.
Remember, they're playing because remember, they've got to play the same opponents the Jets are your Jets are playing this year. And remember, the Jets have the Eagles and the Chiefs, and Buffalo's not played those guys yet.
So listen to this. After the Jets, which, to be honest, they should win. They are the better team.
They are, but I mean, it might be an ugly win. But at this point, you might just take a win in general just to try and get something going.
But after that, Eagles, Chiefs, Cowboys, Chargers.
Wow.
That's like and the Eagles and the Chiefs are both on the road.
Whew.
That's back to back on the road.
And we've seen Buffalo go to Kansas City and win before, but Not with the way this team's looking.
And the Chargers, the fourth game of that set is the day before Christmas.
Yeah.
Or Christmas Eve.
1-3, 2-2 if everything worked out well.
I think they'll beat the Jets, but I think it's going to be like a field goal game or something. I think it's going to be ugly because the Jet defense is going to hold their own. It's a matter of could Zach Wilson play. That's
well, I mean, there's quite a few things that I'm sure we'll get into on Football Friday coming up this week.
But
about that Jet game.
At the Eagles, not a chance. At the Chiefs, not a chance.
No, I can't see it this year.
Against the Cowboys, even though like everyone is overhyping the Cowboys are probably going to win that game.
Is that game in Buffalo or is that game
it's in Dallas.
Oh, I can't see them going to Dallas.
Oh, wait. No. My mistake. It is actually in Buffalo. My mistake. I still think Dallas is more put together than Buffalo.
I got to tell you, though, Dallas, when they're on the road this year, though.
Not good.
Good talent. They're a different team than when they were away in Arlington. Because, we've seen them now go to San Francisco and get embarrassed. We've seen them. They should have probably beat the Eagles, but they did not beat the Eagles in Philadelphia. But when they're in AT&T Stadium, they look like world beaters. I mean, they look like a totally different story. Now, granted, a lot of that's been against inferior competition, but they're still getting the job done. You can only do it against the schedule, against who you play. I mean,
but long story short, just to circle back, I think McDermott's next. I do. I think if they don't make the playoffs this year, he's gone.
Yeah, he's going to probably get the rest of the season, and I think that's a fair point because I thought they weren't going to be as good as they were last year, but I did not think they were going to spiral like this.
I mean, and you got to blame Josh Allen, but here's the problem: what's the theory with the quarterback? You don't blame him.
It's usually the coach that goes first.
But I'm saying is Josh Allen's already paid. He's under contract with a massive amount of money. He's not going anywhere.
Yeah, I was going to say, what is his contract? Let me look at it.
He just signed a massive deal, if I'm not mistaken. No?
Yeah, I think you're right. With all these moves that are
okay, in August 2021, he signed a 6-year contract extension worth up to $258 million.
Oh, man. So that was in 21.
So almost 3 years into it? Yeah.
Yeah, so and he's 27 years old. So let's see here. Next year. Okay, he's got a potential. He's got a potential out after 20. A potential out in 20.
Wait, team opt or player opt? Because that makes a huge difference.
Yeah, I'm just trying to see here. I mean, I'm looking at Spot Track for this.
Oh, I love that site. Yeah.
So next year he's getting 23.5. Then it's 14 and 25. He's got a potential out. It doesn't say what.
That's weird that it doesn't say what it is.
I mean,
I'm assuming it's probably a player opt because he's a bigger name.
Yeah, and he would be 29 going on 30 at that point.
So he's still in the prime at that age. So 150 guaranteed. He's making an average salary of more than $43 million a year, which is insane.
Yeah, his dead cap hits are insane too.
Well, because most of it's in bonuses.
Right. It also goes to show you how great Howie Roseman there is in Philadelphia with the Jalen Hurts contract.
I'm surprised more ownerships don't do that. Put most of it in bonus.
Yeah. It'd be wise to do that, but we'll see what happens here. But Buffalo definitely trending in the wrong direction here.
I'm surprised the NFL hasn't caught on to that people are putting it in bonus and not stopping people from doing it. But it is what it is. All right. Let's move on to Thursday Night Football. Probably the best Thursday Night Football game of the year. I don't know. Do you think so?
Well, and you want to talk about Amazon? Probably. I mean, obviously, I think the opening game of the season with the Lions and the Chiefs was great, but this definitely is what makes this one great is how important it is, how both of these teams are coming off of tough losses last week.
In my opinion, the Bengals need this one in the worst way.
Nick, if you look at the Bengals schedule after this game, it is brutal. And also consider, too, the Bengals have not fared well against the division. I got to tell you this, when I looked at all of these games coming up for week 11, just straight up, this game is the toughest game to pick.
Yeah, I mean, it's not part of our Football Friday, but it's definitely up there for sure.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, as far as making a pick, I mean, here I'll give you some numbers here. So the Bengals, they've lost 14 straight primetime games on the road.
Wow.
But think about also they've beaten the Ravens 4 out of the last 6 they faced each other. The Ravens have scored at least 30 points in 4 straight games. Oh, man.
Wow.
Yeah, no, it's tough because, when you look at the Ravens here, I think their key to success in this one is to run the football. We've seen how the Bengals have struggled against the run this year. We saw Devin Singletary last week for the Texans run it all over them last week. It was not just Stroud. It was Singletary really that did a lot of the damage there for Houston against them. But then we go back to the quarterbacks, too. We talk about how great Lamar is. Joe Burrow, now that he's fully healthy and stuff, has been great. He's over the last 5 games, he's completed almost 75% of his passes. And then you look at the Bengals side. You look at this also. The Ravens are missing 2 key players in the defense going into this one. Ronnie Stanley, Marlon Humphreys, who look like they're both not going to play. I still think both. I think the Ravens are the better team, but I got to tell you, I think this game's going to be really close, and I'm struggling so much that the best play for me to do would be to grab the points in this one. Especially if I'm getting.
So you like the Ravens?
I'm going to take the Ravens to win, but I'm taking the Bengals getting the 3.5 here. I think it's going to be that close. I'm getting that extra half a point. It's a divisional matchup on a short week for both teams, both coming off of bad losses. I mean, the Raven game is a bad loss. The way that one looked, especially in the first half, that's a bad loss there for Baltimore, who I said was the most complete team in the league in the first half. So I'm going to take the Ravens to win, but I'm going to grab the points with Cincy there on Thursday night.
Yeah, I think I saw that T. Higgins is probably going to be out for this game. I think I was reading that.
Out again. Yeah, his hamstring is still bothering him. Again, a short week there for Cincinnati too. So it's the second straight game that he's going to miss. It looks like Henderson's going to be back, which I think is a big deal for them. But
is Jamar healthy?
Well, he was fine last week. I mean, what did he have? 125 receiving yards on last Sunday.
Yeah, but I think not having T.
Actually.
Yeah, but I think not having T. Higgins is going to hurt that production a little bit. Not having the open options, because you're going to get double teams on Jamar with T. Higgins being out.
That's where Tyler Boyd's going to come in. And think about that drop that he had at the end of in the fourth quarter there. How big that would have been if he would have caught that ball in the fourth quarter. Then the Bengals probably would have won that game against Houston Sunday.
Yeah, that was, but I don't know. Ravens offensively, like you just said, what was it? 4 games, 30 points or more against. What was it against the Bengals? You're talking about general.
4 straight games of 30
yeah.
points.
Their offense like flipped the switch, and it's finally coming back to life. Now, I think Odell might be questionable for this game, also, if I'm not mistaken.
I think he's good,
but I just think the Ravens have too much offense for Cincy. I just think they're going to come out. The Ravens have proven that they can win in big games. Cincy, not so much. Yeah, I'm going to take the Ravens to cover, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's very close. Like if it was I could see it being like a 4 or 5 point game, like coming down to the wire. But I just think the Ravens are too good offensively.
Oh, that's fair. I mean, I just feel like this has like 30-27. 27-24.
I wouldn't be shocked.
Yeah.
It's going to be close all the way around. It's just a matter of who's the better offensive team. In my opinion, defense, I think it goes to the Ravens by far.
I agree, especially especially with the run, because I think that's something that since he struggled with this year is the run, and I think if they can keep doing that, Baltimore keep the chains moving, keep the ball out of Burrow's hands.
And like I said, I think T. Higgins could be the difference in the game. Who knows? We'll see.
It's funny. Last week, just real quick, I struggled so much last week between the Panthers and the Bears because they were 2 awful teams. And I took Carolina getting 3.5. I took the Bears to win, but Carolina to cover. I think the same thing this week. This is such a tough one because they're two good teams, both coming off of bad losses on a short week and a rivalry divisional game. That's why I think it's going to be really close. So I'm doing the same thing again and taking the home team to win, but the road team getting the points here. So I'm going to guarantee myself 1 point in that regard. But it's so close. I could see this going either way. I could see Cincy bouncing back and winning. I could see Baltimore bouncing back too. That's how close this game really is. But I'll be honest with you though, you said it, Cincy needs this game in the worst way because of the problems they had in division, and their schedule after this week is still very, very difficult.
I mean, if they lose, I think they're out. At least out of the division.
I think they're out of the division. I think the best they could settle for is a wild card. Yes.
Because I don't think Pittsburgh and Cleveland are going to run away. So they could at least finish second and get a wild card, maybe. But if they're 5-5, it's going to be tough to recover.
Yeah.
All right, let's move around to some NBA. So I saw you put the story in. Again, this doesn't surprise me. Nuggets head coach Michael Malone to be amongst the highest paid coaches. Now, again, we don't know what the deal is. It has not come out. It's undisclosed at this point. But again, this is not a surprise. Denver won the title last year. They are a dominant team again this year. You have guys like Jokic and Aaron Gordon and all those guys like
Jamal Murray, even though he's hurt right now.
I mean, when he comes back, they're just going to dominate all over again. This is not a surprise. It shouldn't be a surprise.
No, it shouldn't be. And one thing that helps teams repeat is bringing back pretty much the same group of characters, and that's what the Nuggets did this year. The starting five is exactly the same. There's very few pieces that they lost this offseason. So
who is the one they lost to Miami? Because that was the guy that
Porter was the one they lost, right?
Yeah, that which was a big piece for them. But
yes, yeah.
I don't think again. I think that could be replaced. I think they're a much better defensive team than they were last year.
Mm-hmm.
The offense is always going to be there. It kind of reminds me of like the early 2000s Lakers, where they just always had offense. Like that was never the question. It was a matter of could they fare defensively. That was the big thing. So this is not a surprise. Michael Malone is probably the best head coach in the NBA right now. And I know that's a bold statement because there are a lot of good coaches out there, but you're skewing younger with head coaches now. He's the one that has the experience, which is hard to believe.
Right.
So not really much of a surprise. There's not really much more I can add to it, except I think Denver has a chance to repeat. I really do.
I agree. I mean, again, you keep the same group of players for the most part there. You look at the rest of that conference. I mean, I thought the Suns might be a challenge this year. So far, the thing with the Suns is they just haven't had that potential players there. Booker's been hurt. Beal's been hurt. Durant, he's going to probably miss time at some point this year. I mean, it's early on, but I mean, I think right now the only way the Nuggets don't do this is if they suffer some major injuries. But again, that's pretty much the same group of people, and you don't see that. It's hard to repeat because usually these teams can't keep the same group of players because of free agency or whatnot.
Well, it also doesn't help. Like the NBA, unlike Major League Baseball, NBA is a cap sport, so it's really hard to keep But I wouldn't say they were a big three. They really built their team from the ground up, which is different.
Yes.
So I think they're going to repeat again. All right. We'll quickly move around the NBA. Again, this is not a surprise.
Oh, I mean,
are we really surprised by this?
No. And how about on the other side too? How about Philadelphia not also a 9-3 start here in 2023?
I mean, hey James, I think you need to take your own quote and say it to yourself.
Is a liar.
I mean, oh. Hey James, I think you're the liar because you kept saying that you were going to go to the Clippers and make them dominate. So far, you have not.
He's been dominated. That's what it is. The team's just that group there. I mean, that group there in LA, it just doesn't have the ring. Doesn't have like the feel of a team that's going to mesh.
By the way, big three, more like big dud. Yeah. James Harden, Kawhi Leonard, and Paul George. They're probably the most injury-prone big three I've ever heard.
That is such an awful group together. It's not even close, and it's not even funny. I mean,
and James Harden's a hack.
It just doesn't work.
I mean, James Harden's a hack, like in the worst way. Like Tom has said it a lot on here that like he's the most overrated player in the NBA. I agree 1,000,000%.
I'm so glad he's far out west right now that I don't have to worry about him going to MSG because there are people that wanted him on the Knicks. I'm like, guys, why do you want him on the Knicks?
It's funny you say that because after they lost in New York, he decided to go clubbing in New York after the game.
Shocker. So he hasn't changed his ways at all then.
No, he's too busy getting fat. I mean,
oh my God.
Here's the part, and like he gets mad because of like all this stuff and nonsense. Well, hey James, why don't you go prove it on the court, win some games, don't get embarrassed. By the way, the Sixers are playing better without you.
Yeah, they are. I mean, I know they lost Wednesday night, but still, they're off to a 9-3 start this year.
By the way, Tyrese Maxey is saying you're welcome.
Yes, I mean he's dropping 50 for the Sixers. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when that trade happened, I was like, that benefits Tyrese Maxey 1,000,000%. But by the way, we can call James Harden America's player too, because he puts up great numbers, great points, but he doesn't win either. He'll put up good points, but he doesn't win. So
and he doesn't play any defense.
Player to go on America's teams. There you go.
There you go. And he doesn't play any defense.
Yes.
Yeah. The Clippers are going to go down this year, and it's not going to be good. And I'm making a prediction now that when they miss the playoffs, you're going to hear James Harden screaming from the rooftops saying, "I request a trade."
Yeah. No, you're right. And
who the hell's going to want him?
Long Dong Tigers.
Oh, I wasn't ready for that. Ugh.
And of course, who's all, and guess what? You know who's going to take the fall for the Clippers? Tyronn Lue.
Ty Lue, yeah. But yes.
Long Dong Tigers. Ni hao! Ni hao! Ni hao!
I mean, that is where he's going to end up because he's not going to be allowed to play in the NBA anymore.
Who's going to want him?
I mean, let's go through the teams because this is insane. So, OKC, where they had a big three. I don't know if it was really a big three before it was popular, but yeah, James Harden, KD, and Russell Westbrook. They should have won a title.
Yes.
Never happened. Gets traded to Houston. Has a variety of different players, including CP3. And who were some? Was that the only one, or was there any others?
That was the big one. And remember, Harden was great down there, but struggled in the playoffs. And who knows if Chris Paul doesn't get hurt? That'll be, the fallacy of the predetermined outcome, which I know you like to use a lot.
Oh, you're talking about the Golden State series where they went 0 for like 27 from 3-point land.
Yes. And that's the game in the NBA, 3-pointers, and we know how great Golden State is at threes.
So then he gets traded from Houston to Philadelphia, right? Or no, he gets traded from Houston to Brooklyn.
Brooklyn, yeah, that awful trade. Oh, I
feel
so bad for you about that.
On paper, because you like to say that a lot, on paper, when they had Harden, KD, and Kyrie, on paper, it was okay. But you got to play the games.
But also, they got rid of their entire bench and their entire role players, like Allen and stuff. That also was a big part of it. Karis LeVert. I remember.
I'm not disagreeing. You're right, 100%. But on paper, like you had 3 stars, you would think they would have competed.
Yes.
And actually, they were one Kevin Durant footstep away from going back.
Yeah.
But then you had all the nonsense with Kyrie, and James Harden had enough. He had enough. Not just us, not the fans, not the NBA, James Harden.
James Harden had enough, yeah.
So now he gets sent to Philadelphia for Ben Simmons,
another one.
And everyone's like, oh my God, James Harden now has a big man and Joel Embiid and have all these other role players. It's time to win a championship in Philadelphia. Oops.
No.
Do we see the pattern here with James Harden?
And another situation where the Sixers are up in the series and they fall apart.
And then the famous quote, obviously.
Is a liar.
I mean, so he gets disgruntled again.
Yeah.
And says, "I don't like you anymore," even though they got along in Houston.
And can't say it in Philadelphia. He's got to go to China and say that.
Which that was probably the most asinine thing I ever heard in my life. But
yeah.
James Harden is basically the boy who cried wolf. Where, I can't win. Help me. And then people realize, oh wait, he's the town crier. We shouldn't help him anymore.
That's right.
But it is what it is. James Harden will never win an NBA title. And like people have said to me, stop saying that because you don't know. Trust me. The whole world knows he's never going to win an NBA title because he can't lead a team, he can't be part of a team, and he can't be trusted.
All right, yeah, go put him on the Nuggets.
Oh God.
Right? Nuggets are favorites to repeat this year.
I guarantee you the Nuggets are saying no.
Exactly. There goes half of Jokic's numbers.
Yeah, really. Oh, well, because James Harden will have to ball hog the basketball every game.
Yeah. I mean, maybe he'll have more rebounds, but
oh yeah, for all the missed shots James Harden has.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, speaking of shots, I don't know. Draymond Green suspended for 5 games. Now, this was nuts. So this was in the Golden State Utah Jazz game. I don't know where was it, in Golden State?
No, this was the playing tournament. I can't remember the courts. Oh,
well, I think it was in Golden State, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Let me look at this here.
I hate the courts. They're so bad.
By the way, the Knicks one is awful. I said I'm a fan of the courts, but the Knicks one is so bad.
But
anyway,
so basically, Klay Thompson gets tied up with somebody and gets hit, and it leads to a skirmish in center court. And Draymond Green decides to put Rudy Gobert in a chokehold.
Oh, that's right. And so this was against the Timberwolves.
Oh, was it against the Timberwolves? That's right.
Yeah, because
I don't know why I was thinking Utah, but yeah, it was
you're thinking of Gobert. That's why.
Yeah, that's why. You're right. And I don't remember where the game actually took place. I think it was in Golden State, but I'm not 100% sure.
It was.
Okay. Fight breaks out center court. They're trying to separate everybody. And Draymond just goes full WWE chokehold on Rudy Gobert. And that's when you knew it was over for Draymond Green.
Yeah. Now, this all started, what was it, about 90 seconds into the game?
The game just started, literally.
Yeah, Jaden McDaniels and Rudy Gobert, also Klay Thompson. So it was McDaniels and Gobert. And then I think, it was Thompson and McDaniels. And then Gobert went in. And then out of nowhere, like a third man in hockey, here comes Draymond and just basically, like I said, goes all WWE style with the chokehold on Gobert. And I thought it was telling when you read the statement that the NBA posted on Wednesday about Green, that the length of the suspension is based in part on Green's history of unsportsmanlike acts.
Again, that's not a surprise. No one should be surprised by that.
Yeah.
This guy has kicked more people in the junk than I can realize. So the NBA fined Klay Thompson, Rudy Gobert, and Jaden McDaniels $25,000 each. Draymond, who got suspended for 5, is going to lose $769,000. Draymond, I have no defense for you at all. Like, I know you won titles with the Warriors. I know you're letting that go to your head, which is what he's still doing. The Warriors stupidly gave you another $100 million contract. If I were the Warriors, I would have said good riddance and don't need you anymore. Yeah. But Draymond's is gonna hold that in his head forever, because now he's a 3-time NBA champion, I think. And even though I think Steph Curry is the reason why they won those titles and not Draymond.
Right. Well, I mean, you think about Curry right away. You think about Klay Thompson. You think about.
I mean, even KD first.
KD, right? I mean, but Draymond Green did have a valuable role in that too. I mean, he's not a star player, but he's those, like we say, those role players. He's that. He's the defense. He was a defensive specialist.
I mean,
he's gotten away from that though.
I mean, I'll give you another hot take. I think Andre Iguodala had a bigger role than Draymond Green.
He came off the bench and had a very important role. I mean, Iguodala is a Hall of Famer.
I mean, how many titles has he won now? I think he was on two of those teams at least.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about a guy who had an underrated career and turned it into a good one towards the end.
Absolutely.
And now he's I think he's the acting head of the Players Association.
Yeah, he took over for Tremeglio, at least on an interim basis. Yes. Or
I think it was a good choice, by the way.
Yes, agree.
But Draymond's a head case, and like people are gonna say, "Well, that's good old Draymond for you." Well, no, good old Draymond is gonna cost the Warriors games.
Yeah, when you want him to be as a defensive pest, and right now he's being a pest in everything but being on the court. I mean, the history in all of this is just like it's alarming with him.
If I were the Warriors, I would pull him aside and say, "Listen, Draymond, enough with the BS. Stop with the podcast. Stop with the stuff off the court. Play basketball. That's what we pay you for."
Yeah, you would think a great head coach like Steve Kerr wouldn't have gotten into him about something like that. I don't know what it is.
No, I think part of the problem is Steve Kerr is giving autonomy to the guys who've won. Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond. He's not going to go after those guys.
Well, when this is becoming a repeat,
and Steph Curry got hurt again.
Yeah, he was out of the game on Wednesday, and this was the first time I think, and they said in league history that players were suspended before there was even a point scored, because this happened not even 2 minutes into the game Wednesday night, and there was no
unbelievable.
Score. Yeah,
unbelievable. I mean,
and it started so innocently enough. That's what was crazy. I mean, it was just a little bit of an entanglement with.
Yeah, that's how they all start.
McDaniels, they were entangled, and then they were grabbing and pulling at one another's jerseys. I mean, you saw how Klay Thompson's jersey was like ripped in half, like he was like Superman.
That was like Draymond. That happened to him in a fight like that. Yeah. But that's how it usually starts. It's usually some stupid little like hand fighting, and then like these players who have egos don't like the fact that they're being touched, and that's how it usually breaks out. But
these guys will never, understand what basketball was like in the 80s and 90s with the hard-fought defenses.
Oh God, like you can't sneeze on NBA players today.
No,
without like a fight breaking out. Can you imagine like if they played Michael Jordan style basketball today?
Oh, forget it. I mean, you sometimes see games in the half that are like 70-60 at halftime. Sometimes that would be the score going into the fourth quarter.
I mean, Charles Barkley, who would fight people in the 90s, like 80s and 90s. Like,
I think it's like Rodman today.
Shaq,
yeah.
I mean, I don't know. The toughness of the game is missing. They're a bunch of babies, to be honest.
And they also don't go down low anymore either, like they used to. I mean, it's outside shooting. It's
3-point line and back. That's the joke I make now, because they're shooting from like 10 feet behind the 3-point line. But this is totally warranted. The NBA got this one right. His reputation got him in trouble, and it's going to keep getting him in trouble. So just take the 5 games, Draymond. I mean, I'm sure he probably likes it. He'd probably go on a vacation for 5 days if he could.
See him on his podcast also talking about something else, something totally random too. Yeah,
or just talk about himself and say the NBA sucks because they gave me a suspension. That's what they all do.
There'll be another fine.
All right, let's move on because we're a little bit over. Quickly do 2 more stories. Baseball. Yes, I'm saying baseball. ESPN's Buster Onley says that Juan Soto will 100% be traded for the 2024 season. I did see something a little bit earlier, over the last couple of days. John Heyman says that he thinks that he won't be traded. So we're in an entanglement, no pun intended.
Now, Only said this on the Michael K show, I think late last week. And it's interesting because I think Soto's got 1 more year left before he could be either free agent or arbitration eligible. It seems like this is a story, something we've been talking about for a little while now with Soto. Remember when he got traded to the Padres, it was with all that control that he had. Now,
Well, there's another
possibly-
issue too. There's another issue involved in this with the Padres, which we started to talk about. Hitting for the Cycle talked about it. The Padres are in debt issues right now. Like they had to take it came out, I think last week, that they had to take like a $50 million loan to cover their expenses on their payroll, which if that's the case, they seriously miscalculated.
Yeah. Because, I mean, they're giving all that money to
Tatis, Machado,
Bogarts.
which I think Machado and Tatis contracts are the worst contracts in the history of baseball, in my opinion. This is they got to trade him for financial. That's pretty much where they're at this point.
Yeah. Well,
now,
of course, I'm sorry. Go ahead. You were going to probably.
I was basically going to say that if it's a financial thing, then it's going to be in the favor of whoever's trading. They have leverage because they know the Padres need the money.
Yeah, but somebody as good as Soto is, he gets on base, doesn't strike out a ton, nice defensive player, still very, very young.
It's not worth $500 million. Not worth it.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if anybody is worth $500 million.
Of course not. No one's worth that.
Ohtani, I mean, of course, all the talk was about Ohtani, but now Ohtani, you have the question if he can ever pitch now without having the elbow issue. So,
I mean,
could you say, given how young Soto still is, that he's at least a 400? I could say 400 million. I mean, somebody like Mike Trout is worth 400 million.
First of all, Mike Trout's contract. Of course, Mike Trout's contract is a massive bust, in my opinion, right now.
And that's again some of the major issues that Major League Baseball is dealing with right now.
And the other thing I will say, and I got a lot of shit for it on social media when we put the clips out, I think Bryce Harper has become the better player over Mike Trout. Playoffs wise?
Well, the difference with that is, so if you're talking about career wise, like making it to the playoffs and stuff, then Harper is the better player.
Trout's only been to 3 playoff games.
You want to say that could also be the team around them as well. But if you look at individual players, the one of the two that's had the better season, if you want to say individual season, has been Trout. Bryce Harper has never had a 100 RBI season. Trout's at least had that.
Right, but
I think Harper's been in more favorable spots though, which it can benefit him. That you can say.
He just missed the Nationals World Series by 1 year.
Well, that's true, but I mean now he's in a more favorable spot there in Philadelphia. Unfortunately, Trout's just that Angels team just can never get it go. Can never get it going.
There was a rumor that that the Philly wanted Trout.
Well, it's funny because that's right, because they're talking about moving Harper to full time to first base, and I'm like, all right, there you go. There's Trout. There's Trout to the Phillies.
Can you imagine the two of them on the same team?
How sick that would be in Philadelphia.
I mean, it's a little too late, in my opinion, but
and maybe put Trout as a DH even, or put him in right field or something like that. But
I don't know.
The thing about Soto is, I mean, there are good teams that are going to call up for him. I mean, of course, all the talk, here locally would be about the Yankees, but I don't see the Yankees doing this. I don't see the Yankees giving up their prospects that they would need to get a Juan Soto.
Well, I still think like even the Yankees would have leverage because the Padres need the money. So
I understand that, but now Soto's only got 1 year left before hitting the free agent or arbitration market.
So I think that's even better for a team like the Yankees if they're going to go because he's a free agent. You're not going to pay as much in prospects.
I also still think that I'm thinking though, like a Jason Dominguez, who I do not want to trade if I'm the Yankees right now.
Well, isn't he hurt?
I think that'll be interesting.
Isn't he hurt right now?
Yeah, he's out almost all of next year because he had Tommy John surgery. He's going to miss most of, if not all of next season. I think it's going to be most of the year, but essentially it would be like all of the year because even when you come back from that, you're going to be rusty. Just terrible. Just absolutely terrible. I know. And he's a stud. I mean, we saw in the very limited time that we saw him that he's going to be special.
I hope so. All right. One last story since we were talking about the Yankees. This was insane. And excuse me, Brian Cashman says injuries are a part of Giancarlo Stanton's game. agent issues free agent warning. Now, I hate to say this, but Brian Cashman got what he deserved.
Yeah, this is one of the worst moves that Brian Cashman's made. By the way, I love the fact that Cashman's been so passionate so far this offseason. They've been more passionate in the last 2 or 3 weeks than they've been the entire 2023 season.
Even though he's wrong, but
well, see, this move, this player, Giancarlo Stanton, was the worst of the worst because he hampers the Yankees, and I've said this numerous times, Nick, and you know this. He hampers the Yankees in so many ways. You know, whether it's in the outfield, whether it's DH, whether you want to try and bring in another player, whether you want to try and bring in a different kind of player. Because to have a Stanton and a Judge on this roster and this lineup who are essentially the same player, one's a little bit healthier, one is a little bit more pop, is just it hurts the Yankees in so many different ways. You could take Giancarlo Stanton out and spread that DH spot around to other players who need it, like a Judge every now and then, like a DJ LeMay who's only getting older.
Yeah, his injuries have been a nightmare.
The problem he's got right now is like, what can you possibly do to change this roster around? Right? I mean, you think about all the positions that they got going into next year. You know, first base is settled. You've got Rizzo who's coming off the concussion. LeMahieu's another year older. You've got Volpe at shortstop. I mean, there's not many moves this team could really make. I think that's why you have to really consider dealing Torres.
I mean, they and supposedly the Marlins offered a boatload in the last trade deadline for him, and I don't know why they turned it down, but
yeah, I didn't think they were going to do that. That doesn't seem like it's going to be an in-season kind of trade, though. That's something I think you probably get more back in the offseason for.
So I read the quote from Joel Wolf, which is Stanton's agent.
Yeah.
And he said, I read the context of the entire interview. I think it's a good reminder for all free agents considering signing in New York, both foreign and domestic, that to play for that team, you've got to be made of Teflon, both mentally and physically, because you can never let your guard down, even in the offseason. You know what, though? I can't blame him for that, though.
He's not wrong. I tell you what, I don't know what's gotten into Cashman the last couple of weeks, though. I mean, he was very, very feisty and defensive in that owners meet, GM meeting. Some of it he was right on, some of it he wasn't. And now this, I don't know. I don't know what the deal is. I think he's just getting very, very aggravated. You look at the way this team has gone, whether between their downfall and between how, deep
not spending.
Well, it's not about spending. It's not about the not spending. It's about spending wisely, too. I mean, look at the rest of the AL East right now, and the AL East is also more competitive than it's ever been before. Look, I mean, Met fans complained all the time about them not spending. Well, they wanted to spend a boatload of money, and look what's happened. It still hasn't gotten them anywhere. I mean, they had one great year last year. They had an off, not last year, in 2022. Last year, they had an off year. It's not about spending. It's about spending wisely. Yeah,
but at least on the Mets side of things, like, I think he literally tried to buy a championship, and it didn't work.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, it doesn't happen. The Yankees did that with a bunch of these guys, like in 04 and stuff, and look what happened. It worked in 09. It did work in 09.
I think that situation was a little different because they needed to fill holes for 08, going into 09, new stadium, all that stuff.
Right.
They needed to fill holes. They got Teixeira, they got CC, they got Burnett,
Swisher.
Even though Burnett kind of fizzled out after that year, but they needed that stuff. They were desperate for that stuff.
Yeah.
Now, I feel like Hal doesn't care. I feel like Hal has no interest in this team competing.
I think also the philosophy is different too, because you talk about them waiting for like the Dominguez's and the Volpes of the world. George would not have done that.
Again, I have no problem with him bringing up the prospects, but you got to give him a chance to fill out the roster and play. Like, that's the big thing. Like, this roster is in between right now. They don't know if they want to have veteran guys. They don't know if they want to have younger players. They're in between.
I think that's fair. Yeah, I think that's a good way of putting it. And now you look at this division, which is as deep and loaded as it's been in forever. I mean, look at the Orioles, look at the Rays, look at the Blue Jays.
And I heard it from a bunch of people. I think I even heard Michael Kay say it. Like, there might not be full stadiums this year if they don't put a competitive team on the field.
Well, I can't blame them because you have to look at the economic impact too. I mean, look how
Ticket prices,
parking, food prices. I mean, that's totally legitimate. I think that's, as much as you want to talk about it's the team thing, I think it's also an economical thing too.
Well, let me ask you a question. Are you paying a few $100s as like a family of 4 for parking? Unless you're taking the subway or taking whatever. But let's say you're driving into the state, so you have to drive. You got to take the tolls. You got to do what you got to do. You got to park.
Time to it.
You got to buy food. You're gonna buy a souvenir because maybe you don't go very often.
Yeah.
What are we talking about? A couple $100 at least?
400-500.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like, you're not going to pay that if the team's not going to compete. And I think the novelty of the Yankees has kind of worn off. Like you said, oh well, everyone comes from around the world to see the Yankees. I think that novelty's kind of worn off a little bit.
I think it has a little bit, yeah.
But I don't know. It'll be interesting. The winter meetings are coming up. I think December 7th to December 9th in Nashville, I think.
You know what's really sad, though? When you're more excited about the MLB offseason than the actual regular season, you know that there's a lot wrong.
I love the winter meetings. That's my favorite time of the year. I don't know why, but I guess because all the exciting movement of free agency. But
yeah, I mean, as I said, the offseason's more fun than the regular season right now. That's right.
And now they're talking about. Did you see that they want to adjust the pitch clock again?
I did see that before we did this today, and I'm just like, what is going on with this?
Now they want to adjust it from 20 to 18 with runners on base.
Oh, come on, guys! I mean,
I had the same reaction you did. I'm like, guys, you got to leave the clock alone, or else they're never going to use it right.
It's not even that. We are fundamentally ruining this game. There is no coincidence that baseball's last 4 World Series have been the lowest rated World Series in history.
Well, I would say it didn't help with the team's sake, like that are in it.
But it's also because fundamentally this game is damaged. Now,
I thought originally they were not going to have the clock. That was originally what they were talking about, like just leaving the World Series be. I think it actually helped the World Series go quicker.
Yeah, that was they discussed right before the postseason started about that. But you cannot be changing this again.
No.
Guys, it's 1 year.
Just let it be. Like, let it be. If you want to go test stuff like down in the minor leagues, because that's what they use the minor leagues for, to test stuff, do it down there. Don't do it up here. Let it be.
Like I said, MLB off season is more exciting than the actual regular season.
Well, not that Cashman, not that Rob Manfred cares.
Oh, Rob, you should realize that. I mean, again, last 4 World Series have been the lowest rated World Series in baseball history. Coincidence? I think not. You've been in control of this.
And people are complaining like Rob Manfred should lose his job. Well, there's 30. How many owners? 32.
Look. The only way that Rob Manfred's going to lose his job, and we don't wish this, is if something criminal happens. He hasn't done anything criminal. He's just done a lot of stupid, hasn't been using his noodle, let's just say. Not anything criminal, just a lot of dumb, though, personal decisions and thoughts about this game that have done that. I also think the philosophy of the game itself has changed for the worse, too, which doesn't help either.
We'll see what happens, but that basically does it for episode 209 of ETB. A lot coming up, a lot of streams coming up. Monday Night Football. Most of us are going to be getting together for Chiefs-Eagles, which, again, another good game.
Yeah, so we start and end Week 11 with a couple of thrilling matchups. And
then Friday the 24th, we're doing our first NBA 3&D stream. We're going to be doing Warriors and Spurs, Victor Wembanyama, Friday night.
Matchup, nice.
Well, we had an option for the Knicks, but
no, it's okay. It's all,
I wanted to see Victor. I haven't really seen him play. I've seen the highlights. He's been great.
Yeah, actually, the Knicks were the one team that's actually held him in check so far.
That's a good point. You're right.
Yeah. But that'll be a cool matchup too.
So we have all that coming up. Obviously, Football Friday tomorrow, noon Eastern. Make sure you check that one out. What are we?
You and I are going to try and continue our hot hands. You're looking at the two biggest point scores from Week 10 going into Week 11 here. We have a little bit of a shakeup in the standings, which we'll announce tomorrow.
Finally!
Yes. I know you're at the bottom still, but you're not that far off. So we'll see if we can keep the momentum going.
I think I'm within 3 or 4 points, I think.
Yeah,
something like that.
We'll announce it tomorrow.
So make sure you check that out. What are we, Week 12? Or
Week 11 in the NFL, Week 12 in college. College has 2 more weeks, and then the conference championships, and then we're into bowl season.
Yeah, so make sure you check out Week 11 of Football Friday, presented by Wolf Spreads. We'll give you our picks. A lot of us did well on the Wolf Spreads app, too.
That
was good.
I only got 1 wrong. I went 7 out of 8. I think I got like a $1,300 profit, and I still finished in 3rd place this week.
Oh, jeez. I think I was like 4th or 5th.
But that proves how well everybody did. It was that great of a week. I think I was the same thing in our ETB competition too. Well,
I accidentally put Seattle as a favorite, even though in the actual Football Friday I took them. What was it? Seattle Commanders plus 6.5 or whatever it was.
You got that right.
But I accidentally put it in wrong on the Wolf Spreads app.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, because you scored 2 points in that game.
And admit to the audience, I usually don't do that.
Nick Morgasen does not usually take a non-cover. No, it's rare. He did it a couple times last week, and it worked out.
Minnesota,
yeah. Well, that was
3
one that I got wrong. You took that as a full upset special, which worked out. Yeah.
And then the Raiders also.
The Raiders you got, yeah, those were. So you're picking the ones that I got wrong, the few that I got wrong. But look, it's been a weird year, but we'll see what we do here for week number 11 coming up on Friday.
Yeah, so that'll do it.
Yeah, obviously, of course, have the notifications set and follow us, because next week, obviously, with Thanksgiving, our schedule will be a little bit different.
Oh, we got a lot to. We'll probably put that out in the next couple days.
Yeah, like our Football Friday will be moved up a little bit. But best thing to do is just follow us, and I'll let Nick be like the flight attendant reading the instructions.
Yeah, really.
Get us out of here.
But yeah, so make sure you follow us at social media at ETB Sports, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at ETB Sports. Follow the Empty the Bench Podcast Network at ETB Network, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Follow us on the YouTube channel, which I checked. I think it has like 623 subscribers. We're doing good. YouTube.com/ETB Network for this show, for the Monty Moments, for a bunch of other shows, Hitting for the Cycle, a lot of shows. So 3&D, which is now in season. So make sure you follow and subscribe to this channel. ETBpodcast.com for all blogs and all other information for streams and other info. We're going to put a schedule out for that because there's a lot of streams coming up. So make sure you follow along with that as well. And also, if you want to take us on the road and you don't want to look at us, because I know maybe we don't look as good as people advertise, just make sure you check us out on our podcasting platforms, Acast, iHeart, Spotify, Apple. We're on every platform. So if you need an audio platform, you'll find it. So that'll do it for Johnny Montalbano filling in for Tom Albano. Johnny, thank you. And I'm Nick Morgasen, and Tom will be back for episode 210, which will be in the wild week of Thanksgiving, where we have to do a lot of scheduling gymnastics. So for Johnny Montalbano, I'm Nick Morgasen. Good night, everybody. We'll see you next week.
Good night, friends. Happy Thanksgiving.